Hi, everyone. This is Caroline Griffin, Riot's Events and Operations Manager. Thank you for joining us here today for Riot 45, our Tech for Good event. Before we get started, just have some quick overview for our format for today. So will be a panel discussion. All of your microphones will be muted. We'll start with a quick spotlight from one of our partners, Xylem, and then move into our moderated discussion. We will close out with our audience Q&A. So if you have any questions, please put those in the Q&A box and I will make sure all of your questions get answered at the very end. This will be recorded and released on Riot's YouTube channel. So if you need to leave early, no worries, you'll be able to watch it there. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Riot's Executive Director, Tom Snyder.
All right, thank you, Caroline. And thanks to all of you joining us today. I'm really excited to be here for Riot 45. This is our 7th Riot this year and 45th in this particular series. Excited to have an incredible program. We got Xylem here today. We got CrossComm, Code the Dream, Device Solutions, Xylem. We've got a packed agenda of experts in IoT and in technology. And today's topic, I think, is incredibly exciting as we think about technology. Oftentimes it's easy to get into the nuts and bolts of how are we doing something and what advanced functionality do we have. Riot has never really been about technology as a technology organization. Really, our organization is about what kind of outcomes can be created with technology. And today we're going to try and dig into a number of cool examples of using technology for good to drive societal change, to create incredible impact. And I think that's particularly important at a time like now when there has been so much recent uncertainty and stress in our lives, to remember there are an incredible number of really cool and good things going on. So to get started, we're going to kick off with Travis T. Travis is the developer growth lead at Xylem, one of Riot's partners. Travis, welcome to the program.
Hey, Tom, thanks a lot for having me. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, why don't you start by just telling our listeners a little bit about who Xylem is and the People's Network.
Okay, so simply, Xylem is the world's first peer-to-peer wireless network that allows for a secure mechanism for IoT devices to get their data out onto the net, onto a dashboard, right? It's decentralized and built on top of a blockchain, and all the core technology is completely open source. And what this allows you to do is earn cryptocurrency by building or providing network transport and by validating the network coverage. And so it's a very, very low cost method to pull an IoT project online without having to deal with SIM cards, without having to deal with cell bills, without having to deal with a lot of the high priced per device issues that we've been dealing with for years here. And we have a calculator on the site, and so you can actually run up, if I have 100 devices at this rate, what's it going to cost me over a year? And I think everyone will be pleasantly surprised at how low that cost really is. So but it's owned by the people. I mean, this is a network that literally in the past few months we have been able to deploy to all 50 states. We're moving now into Canada, over into Europe, and other countries to come. So it's exciting. It's wonderful seeing this actually being built by the people, and that's why we call it the People's Network. So we would love to have more developers, IoT developers, online with this project. I think it's absolutely amazing.
That's really exciting. So instead of a proprietary network with a bunch of independent base stations and towers, you yourself become part of that network and enable not only your own projects, but everybody else that wants to participate collaboratively.
Absolutely. Now, keep in mind also that this still gives you reliable end-to-end encryption. And so just because you're part of the network, that doesn't mean you're seeing everyone else's data. It's absolutely a secure network and something that can be built, enterprise level apps can be built on this.
That's fantastic. And as you mentioned, you're excited about not just use of the network, but new applications, things are being built on this network. Tell us about IoT for Good, your latest initiative.
Yeah, okay. So Helium, ARM, Simtech, and ST Microelectronics, we've come together for this IoT for Good contest. We're running over on Hackster.io, and we're giving away, what, $6,500 in cash prizes, and the same amount in what we call Helium data credits. And that allows you, that's what you use to send data across the network, right? And so, and that's great. We're giving away a lot of Helium hotspots, and these hotspots not only allow you to forward packets on the network, but they allow you to mine cryptocurrency by providing network coverage and by routing this traffic. And so you have a token that you earn, by providing or being a part of this network. So it's exciting, but the contest is IoT for good. And what we're wanting to do here, the concept of the challenge is to use IoT for good things. And this can be interpreted how you want, but we want to see entries that help society out with some of the problems that we're seeing every day, right? And I mean, this could be air quality. This could be agricultural, how to increase food production in struggling countries. This could be, mechanisms to help manage the problems we're seeing as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. We just want to see good done using IoT technology. And we really feel that the People's Network is a good mechanism for developers and companies to get something up quickly, to get a prototype up, to build that prototype into a fully developed application that can be pushed out. It's something that we have a very strong developer community built around, and would love to have everyone be a part of it. And this is for hardware development. This is for application development. And check out our contest over on Hackster.io. We have about 42 days left, I believe, for entries to come in. We have over 310 entries at this point. And so we're getting some good traction here. And we'd love to have everyone here be a part of this contest and try to do some good out of this thing called IoT that we do.
That's fantastic. And thanks for sharing how people can get involved. Open to, I assume, people of all skill levels, experience levels, or is there additional support for how people get involved?
Absolutely. There's, regardless of skill level, this is something that we have a huge wealth of documentation that we've been putting a lot of work into over on developer.helium.com. So please jump over into the developer docs. We also have a community Slack channel that is very active. And so if you have any type of question, please do not hesitate to throw it up in there, and someone, I promise you, someone will be helping you out. And it may not just be Helium here. I mean, we like I say, we have a very active developer community, and everyone has been fantastic in being able to help out getting new developers up to speed on the platform.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for sharing all that. When can we learn about some of the projects, or when should we have you back on the program to hear about all the cool stuff that was built on the People's Network?
Well, I'll tell you what, we actually have a weekly, what we call the Helium Hacks Happy Hour, every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific. You can jump on, and it's just a very casual video call where everyone can kind of, poke around, show their projects. I know that Joey had shown a project yesterday through the Riot meeting. And that was a project that was initially presented over on Helium Hacks Happy Hour. And so it's open to all. So please do not hesitate to jump in. That's probably the easiest way. We're starting to see some projects on the IoT for Good contest rolling in. So I'd love to be back whenever you'll have me.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us for a few moments today. I know you're going to hang around. We've got audience questions coming in over the chat window. We're going to move into our panel discussion now, but we'll capture those questions and bring you back in just a little while.
Tom, thank you very much for having me.
All right. So now we're going to move to our panel. I'm excited to have Don Shin, Renee, Peet, Lori Khamala, Chris Lamb, and Rod Chavez joining us today. I'm going to let you introduce yourselves. You can do that better than I can do myself. Let's just do a quick around the table. Don, let's start with you.
Sure, thanks. Hi, everybody. My name is Don Shin. I'm the founder and CEO of CrossComm. We are a web, mobile, and AR/VR app development studio I've been running the company for a little more than 20 years now, and we seek to find app projects along the intersection of innovation, usefulness, and social good.
Fantastic. Thank you, Don, and thanks for being here. Renee, I'll let you take it next.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me, Tom. I'm Renee Peet. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Product Management for Xylem for the Census brand. Xylem is a global water technology company primarily. With Census, we do water, gas, and electric utility technology, so industrial IoT at scale for some of our critical infrastructure globally. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Looking forward to hearing about some of your projects here in a moment. Let's move over to Lori next. Maybe Lori and Rod, I'll let you go after Lori since you're both with the same group.
Awesome, thanks. Hey everyone, I'm Lori Khamala. I'm the Director of Partnerships at Code the Dream. Code the Dream is a nonprofit software development shop in Durham. We partner with organizations and small businesses building apps and web technologies that have a social impact. And one of the unique things about us is that all our developers are graduates of our free coding classes that we offer to immigrants and folks from low-income communities. I love working with all our student developers at Code the Dream because we really care about each other, about making the world and community a better place, and we love to have fun also.
Sounds like you're on the right program. Thanks for joining us. Rod, let's go to you. Do we still have Rod?
I have a bachelor of computer science. Can you hear me good?
Yep.
Well, yeah, so I'm Rodrigo Chavez. I have a bachelor's in computer science and we're a developer intern at Code the Dream. And as Lori mentioned, we partner with organizations and business to build apps that have a social impact. I first started at Code the Dream learning new programming languages and then working with client projects. Now I'm doing project management for one of the web and mobile apps that we have. And I've been part of the team for about a year now. I really enjoy the impact that we can make. And I'm passionate about giving back to the community and others that are starting their path in software development. And I've also been mentoring some of our new interns at Code the Dream, helping them prepare to join in some of our projects.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining. And Chris, I haven't seen you since maybe earlier this morning or yesterday on a webinar. Glad to connect again.
We've had a lot of time together, so thanks for putting this together. Thank you, everyone, for your time this afternoon to attend and participate. I'm Chris Lamb. I'm the co-founder and CTO here at Device Solutions, and we're an Internet of Things developer. We develop the things or the devices. There's a lot of focus and emphasis on low power, miniature, and RF-enabled devices, shall we say. We've been doing that for quite a while and look forward to tackling some new and interesting projects for good.
All right, we have a lot of builders on the panel today, builders in both hardware and software and solutions. Don, you've run CrossComm for a number of years now. Ultimately, a lot of your work is client-based work, but you've also managed to run a number of your own projects. Give us a couple examples of things that you're excited to have worked on recently.
Yeah. So one project that I'm particularly proud of is a collaboration with Duke University in light of the recent COVID-19 situation. So an internal team within Duke University built a ventilator splitter device. You probably all have heard of the ventilator situation and how ventilators can be used to help people breathe when they can't get enough oxygen. And in situations where there's not enough ventilators, one ventilator has to be shared amongst two patients. But one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that ventilator treatment is a very rough treatment. It can cause a lot of damage if there's too much pressure or too little pressure. And so if you're splitting one ventilator between two different patients, both patients have their own unique needs, their own unique lung compliance and pliability. And so someone created this Y-splitter device for splitting one ventilator with two patients, but with a very unique resistor system where you can insert a resistor inside of the Y-splitter so that different pressure amounts are given to one patient over another. The only problem is that the doctor needs to understand which resistor setting to insert into the Y-splitter. And that's where we were able to come in and build an app pro bono and do it in a way such that the doctor can input all the stats of patient A, patient B, and then get a whole bunch of possible computer model outputs so that the doctor can make the best choice for both patients. I think that I'm particularly proud of that because, even though right now we have a lull with the number of patients right now, there are other parts of the world where there are not nearly enough ventilators. And so to be able to basically multiply the effectiveness of the number of ventilators that a country might have, to me, has the potential to save real lives. Another project that we recently worked on, also in response to the COVID situation, came out of a very personal place because I found myself dealing with feelings of helplessness and despair, reading dark news every day about people dying. And, I'm not a politician, I'm not a public health expert, but I can build apps, and I got a team that can build apps. And so we built a web app, an online journaling platform for people to be able to journal 3 good things going on in their lives, 3 things they're thankful for once a day. In fact, there have been studies in Duke University that show that if you adhere to that practice consistently, that could actually lower your stress and increase the quality of your life. And so we created an online journaling platform that also allows you to share your entries with your close circle of friends and family, or potentially even broadcast those things that you're thankful for to the rest of the world over social media. So we released that thing as just a community project, and I've seen user adoption steadily increase, and hopefully it's helping people's lives in a tangible way.
Cool, thanks for that. I may need to chat with you offline. We're working on with a project team in our Mission R initiative that's working on bringing that same kind of resistor and thermistor technology to bag valve masks for manual ventilation. And I wonder if there might be an overlap. So we can talk more on that later.
Yeah, for sure.
Really interesting project. So, thanks. It's interesting. I think about you're driving in a for-profit company, but doing these these pro bono kind of free projects and things. Lori, thinking about the business model around Code the Dream is a little bit different as a nonprofit doing some things for free, but obviously needing to drive revenue and stuff. Tell me about how a little bit more about the organization, how it works, and how you do your project selection.
Yeah, sure. We are in a very unique space where we are a nonprofit, and we do a lot of collaborative grant writing with potential partners who may not have any resources, but still, really need an app. And at the same time, we're also working towards being a sustainable social enterprise. So we really have a mix of the different things that we do. We sort of have these twin goals of opening up career opportunities for folks from diverse low-income communities, while also developing apps that help our communities. And we have almost 30 student developers right now working with us, alongside some really longtime professional developers who are serving as mentors and guiding a lot of our projects along. And it's really just finding that sweet spot between where projects that can have a big impact, and then where we're able to get funding for them, and how we're able to partner for those. And increasingly, we're doing bigger jobs for bigger clients that can pay full price, I guess, because we've got an amazing team that's just developing some awesome stuff. We did our first augmented reality project in partnering with the North Carolina Museum of Art for a couple of murals in Durham that we built out. And we're also looking, we're partnering with organizations that work with migrant and seasonal farm workers in North Carolina. we're partnering with Face Mask Warriors, which has grown to be one of the largest sites that are connecting individuals who are making masks during COVID with where there are needs for masks. So there's a really wide variety of projects, from simple web design all the way up to really complex web and mobile apps that our developers are working on. And we're always excited to partner with new groups that have needs, and just looking for both funding opportunities and other ways to get.
That's great stuff. We, as Riot, we run a similar model, maybe a little bit different, but we have a number of great corporate sponsors that, through their sponsorship, help enable us to offer a lot of free services to folks that can't pay, and it's incredibly rewarding. So now, Rod, am I correct in assuming maybe that you have come through the program? Have you seen this end to end, first as a student and now as a developer for the company?
Right. Well, when I first started with got in touch with Code to Dream, I was still science bachelor's and in school, and at the same time, I did start taking some of their programs, being part of their class, and really helped me out to find the path of where I want to go after I finish school, what I want to do, what kind of work I want what do I want from technology, right? And I think I really enjoy the part of giving back to the community and having some sort of impact, rather than just many other options that there is out there for computer science. But yeah, that would be right.
That's great. Is there a particular project that maybe has been a memorable one for you that you've been able to work on?
Well, for the current project that I'm working on, as Lori mentioned, this one is focused on helping farm workers, and organizations that do outreach, that in different ways with like medical things that they might need, donations, just getting access to resources. And it is a web app and also a mobile app that we've been working on. And I really have enjoyed working on this one and managing the project, along with like a few other, but this one's pretty cool so far.
Awesome.
Just add in one detail about the project Rod is referring to. One example of the impact of our program is that one of our interns, who is no longer with us because she's gone on to get a job at a startup in Durham, but she herself grew up as a migrant farm worker in North Carolina. So she lived in migrant housing, and she did farm work with her family. And then to come completely full circle, where she was actually helping to build this app that was supporting outreach to migrant and seasonal farm workers, it was really impactful. And so that's the kind of impact we're looking for, both at that individual level and really being able to support organizations increase their impact.
That's great. You're really solving a big problem in tech as well, which is that we don't always have the diversity of viewpoints into the technology products that we build. So by bringing in those folks that actually have the real application experience, as well as then the technology skills, is something that we need more of, I think. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, well, anyone who wants to hire our interns, let us know. We don't want to part with Rod. Please do not take him away from us. But no, we really do have some fantastic folks, and it's a great program.
Super. Chris, let's shift over to you. You by day are working on a lot of client projects in a similar kind of a role as Don has, but are also doing some pretty cool stuff on the side. Tell us about the volunteer project that you're working on over in Africa.
Okay, thanks. Sure. In 2018, I was contacted by an old friend from high school who had successfully exited a energy business and was contemplating her next moves. And she had started a business, international business with several entities in Ghana and Sierra Leone to bring solar power to the villages. These villages are maybe an hour drive over a slow dirt road from the nearest power, and there's quite literally no electricity there at all. So she looked to bring solar systems to them and increase the percentage of solar power and renewables on the grid. In Ghana, that's called Black Star Energy, and in Sierra Leone, Power Leone. You can see both have pretty good presence on Facebook if you want to see some of the videos and things. So they pursue some private funds and grants and things like that for a lot of the CapEx. and then try to fund all the OpEx and things from their customer revenue and payments for the electricity. To do this, they've built some very simple meters based on Arduinos and things like this. And I got involved when she found a grant to cover some travel expenses so I could go over and see how I could help and continue to be involved every chance I get. It's a very interesting project. It was fascinating to go over there. You kind of have to see it to believe it in some ways. And it seems like summer there, so you expect it to be kind of late into the night and those kinds of things that we associate with summer. But instead it's equatorial. So I looked it up, and here in RTP this week, sunrise is about 6:05 in the morning and sunset's about 8:15. And in Ghana, it would be about 5:45 for sunrise, so pretty similar, but sunsets at 6:10, so at least 2 hours earlier. So you quickly find yourself in a very dark place relatively early in the evening when we were working. The only lights we saw were the ones we were providing from the solar power. Typically one bulb or two in a small hut, and a TV and maybe a satellite receiver, things like that. So it was quite fascinating. And these lights have a pretty huge, and it's not just lights, but they have a pretty huge impact. So, of course, the students and the girls and the women can study. That's a huge benefit. The lights enable the stores and the traders to stay open longer, increase their business hours, increase their sales. It's enormous for medicine. They can store vaccines for things like yellow fever that are pretty critical. That's the one vaccine I had to have before going over. Also antivenom, that needs to be stored in a refrigerated facility. It's pretty important. We did see, come right out of the bush that was surrounding the power pole that we were working on, a green mamba, 5 or 10 feet away. So it's important to have antivenom based on that. But imagine also the other medical things, labor and delivery in the dark with only maybe a headlamp or something, or candles, and basic care, things like pulse oxygenation, or even as so popular today, ventilators, right? Not only do they not have many, they couldn't power them in these villages. So this is huge. In addition to refrigerators, TVs, lamps, they also are able to power grain mills and things like this to allow them to process the grain that they grow more easily, more locally. Surveys show that a woman can increase her income on average of 6 times and all the way up to 11, and enable them all kinds of new business models and things like that as well.
It's incredible. I will suggest maybe as a next project, you look at anti-snake. Maybe then you don't need the storage for the anti-venom, but yeah, it's incredible to think about how impactful just a little bit of technology can be across health, across income, across so many different dimensions. So really nice work. Renee, we haven't chatted with you yet. We've just talked about electricity and light and power. Xylem and Sensus are deep in water, among many other things. Talk to us about the Watermark project.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. It struck me as Chris was talking that he's really working on providing those critical infrastructure in developing economies. We're doing similar things with water across Xylem. So Watermark is our corporate social responsibility program. It's quite robust. We have the opportunity for all 16,000 of our employees worldwide to participate in one way or another. We do everything from school and community projects to water, sanitation and hygiene, education. We do a lot of emergency response with our pumping technology, where we need to move vast quantities of water out of affected communities. We also do a lot of water stewardship, and we do that through partners, and we do that through ourselves. We have a really wonderful partnership with Planet Water, which I was able to participate in personally. I spoke with Amber a little bit about that. One of the great benefits of working for a company like Xylem is you get to go do these hands-on opportunities to really help and give back. And as part of a management program earlier this year, I was in India, and we went with Planet Water to build a water tower for a school that serves 400 children. Those children had no fresh, clean running water for their school, and they did 2 meals a day for 400 children in this school. So it was really I can't even begin to tell you how profound the experience was working with my colleagues from Xylem and working with the colleagues in Planet Water to, in one day, raise a water tower that provided clean water, clean filtered water with hand washing stations for these 400 children, and more importantly, for the kitchen that fed them and feeds them twice a day. It was pretty profound. And I was talking to our head of corporate social responsibility. We'll do about 30 of these projects globally in communities around the world. We have a wide range of projects that do that. Even in North America, we have relationship with the Water Boys to bring water to underserved rural communities. You'd be surprised how many people are underserved in water in the United States as well. So it's a tremendous program, and our commitment as a company is pretty inspiring. We also have a project where we are looking at our technologies serving water and how do we develop those for base of the pyramid. So not all of the solutions that we create for developed economies where you have things like steady power and reliable power apply in all the communities. So how do we take our technologies and make them apply and serve that base of pyramid? So that's another thing that we do through the Watermark program. It's personally, it's a really great program, and we do a lot of things through our sustainability initiatives globally.
Yeah, really cool stuff. I'm always astounded when you think about the propensity of water. You know, we're essentially on a water-filled planet, and yet there is this scarcity of clean water. And so, the projects you're doing are really impactful. Let's stay with you for a moment. We've talked a lot about good so far in the broadcast, but we haven't spoken as much about technology. And Xylem has really transformed over the last several years into IoT at scale. You know, connected meters, data and analytics, and all kinds of things. Where are you seeing the technologies you just mentioned making the biggest impact? Not just in the developing world, but developed world and so forth. You know, what are the technologies that have been most pivotal for you?
Well, it's interesting, Tom, because as I think about it, it's not any one technology. It's those things coming together in solutions and application to serve customer needs. And so as I look at our most impactful and successful implementations, it's where sensorization, telemetry, and analytics really come together to solve problems that maybe a utility or a municipality might be having. It's kind of like the wave of transformation that happened in the electric utility industry in 2008, where you start seeing that the power of bringing these technologies together at scale to solve problems in ways that we haven't been able to do that before.
That's great. That's great. Don, CrossComm's always been a very technology forward organization, thinking about, how do you leverage the newest things for the coolest reasons. Where are you? Have you been dabbling in building new products?
Yeah. So, one of the things that I've been kind of obsessing over ever since this virus thing got us stuck in our homes is, let's face it, technology has kind of served a lot of detrimental impact on our ability to form communities through divisive social media, through, us being stuck to our screens. And yet here we are physically isolated from each other, and we're using a Zoom conference to connect. Albeit I think many of us are probably already even burnt out on video conferences and potentially even browsing the web as we speak. And I think that we could do better with the technological innovation that we have access to. We can do better. I am hoping that in the near future, we can eventually meet in VR, and that we can bridge the gap between distance in a much more effective way and a more immersive way through virtual reality, to collaborate professionally over virtual reality. I don't know if any of you have seen Steven Spielberg's Ready Player One movie, but we're not too far from that. In fact, just recently, we did a project pitch where we sent a VR collaboration environment preloaded on an Oculus Quest headset. We mailed it out to our prospective client, and then we met virtually in that virtual space. And thankfully, they were kind enough to send the headsets back. But you know, when we were in that space, we really felt like we were spending time with each other in a more profound way than just being in a video conference. And so I think that I'm hoping for the day where we can kind of almost in a three-dimensional fashion have my children meet with their grandmother, and that we can bridge the gap during this pandemic as well as any future pandemic that might cause us to be isolated from each other. I also think, you know, technology has had a real detrimental impact on our communities, and so I'm trying to figure out right now how technology can be used to actually foster and reverse the trend of disintegration of our communities, and to kind of help us to see that our communities and the people around us, that our faiths are intertwined. And the three good things was an attempt at that, and I think that there are other ways that technology might be able to foster that as well. And so those are some of the things that my mind is kind of pondering right now, especially during this season of the virus.
Yeah, thanks for that. I am struck that there are enabling layers of technology and infrastructure that allow us to do things like VR and other things. Chris, you know, the project you described, you're going to a place that is a couple of technology generations behind, or maybe really doesn't have enabled technology in the way we think of the word today. What challenges are there associated with leapfrogging from where you were or where someone is now to where you want to get them technology-wise? I think you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, the trip was really very interesting in that respect because it's a mix of being up to date and not up to date. So you land and you still get to use the ATM and things like that, and even get your ride from the airport using Uber. At the same time, the Uber driver doesn't trust the map, so you better be able to describe where you are to him, which is pretty challenging because usually you only know, you know, well, I'm next to a big sign that says this. And then he wants to be paid in cash instead of through Uber. So lots of challenges like that on a daily basis. As we rolled out the systems, you know, the team there, I had never worked with any of the people on the ground before. Really super bright, great problem solvers, very adept at getting things done. Several had been to the best universities around, but really had limited exposure to any of the latest and greatest stuff. But they had managed to build working systems out of commercially available components, both things like inverters that are real products, but also Arduino boards, and pairing them together with things like digi-modules to make a whole live mesh network in the middle of a village in Africa. These villages, we were about 2 hours driving outside of a small city called Kumasi, which is a short flight from Accra. So we're pretty much in the middle of Ghana, an hour from the grid, and here we have the latest, you know, mesh network up and running. In terms of challenges, they abounded every step of the way. You can start with things like, you know, air conditioning and water. My bedroom was the only air-conditioned room basically outside of the airport, and that barely qualified. So keeping components, you know, ready for assembly would be difficult. Preventing corrosion and all these things are kind of basic challenges at that level. Like us, much of what they use comes from Amazon or Alibaba, such as the Arduino boards, but nothing is stocked locally. Not once during the trip did we go to the store to really buy anything. For water, we bought it on the street in small 2-cup bags. So you better order and plan ahead and be ready to improvise with what you have. So again, very good at that, but it requires a different kind of planning. There's no going to Best Buy to replace your laptop or to AutoZone to fix your truck. So you should be careful with both. And this maker's world of Arduinos and shields and plugins and readily available, relatively inexpensive things like power supplies from Alibaba has really enabled these guys to build working systems where they couldn't before. The particular systems in Ghana were all hand built by that team, but as they've expanded into Sierra Leone, where they're building many more, they worked with an organization called Barefoot College, which is really a phenomenal organization out of India that trains women from African villages. It flies them to India to school and learn sort of solar technician skills. And so they now build the meters. So not only are we providing power and lights and all these good things to the villages, but also some jobs doing the meter assembly and things like that, which is on the scale of about 10,000 for Sierra Leone, I believe. So there are sort of challenges everywhere, but the biggest one is just being able to get the training and the supplies you need.
Interesting. So Lori, you're in a different scenario. Obviously, Durham, North Carolina is not Sierra Leone, but you're going into underserved communities where there are folks that maybe don't have the educational background or don't have experience with the computers or other kinds of things. What challenges do you see, if any, in helping people to become technology forward that maybe didn't come from the technology background of having that smartphone in their hand from day one?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it leads in a little bit. I really wanted to respond also to Don's comments. I thought that was a really powerful commentary about the impact of technology in our community. And I was thinking a lot about how that relates to our experience at Code the Dream in a couple ways. And one is that I think with the huge growth in technology over the last couple decades, it's out there, it has brought all these wonderful things, but also the sort of very detrimental aspect or impact on the wealth gap also. And we're just kind of seeing these, the wealth gap just be exacerbated, and also seeing this big separation of particularly Black and Brown communities being left out of a lot of the gains that some communities are making as a result of these technological booms. So I think that's one thing that we're really seeking to address as Code the Dream also, is how do we reshape the face of tech? How do we move forward in a space that can really value it, all members of our community? And so, yeah, we definitely see there's interns who come from very different backgrounds, refugees, immigrants, folks from very low income communities who haven't always had the same opportunities. And so we're really through our classes, we really have to consider that. We have huge demand in our classes now. And we're about to start next week. We're beginning a new cohort of our class, and we had almost 400 applications, and we can only take for about 40 students. So there's a huge demand that we're trying really hard to meet, but it's just, again, a question of resources and how are we able to help bring people along. And there's tons of wonderful free materials out online for learning to code, but what we provide is just a really safe space and environment where the instructors look like our students, and a space where there's mentors who can really help you along. So those are some of the differences. And just one other thing I wanted to note related to Don's comments on community, the community that we've created at Code the Dream is a really, really special place. And we had to do some adjusting. We have actually, this past year, we've gone national and have now we have students and now interns from all over the country. In fact, Rod is joining us from Chicago. And we've really had to figure out how to adjust. How do we maintain that sense of community, even though we're all in these different places now? And Rod can probably speak to this, but I think one of the funny things that's happened is that we were so proud of our physical community and everyone being together that some of our interns and students who were not in North Carolina were really being left out and really getting the short end of the sticks. So Rod can probably speak to this about how I think since this has been an opportunity for us to really reconsider how we work nationally and how we incorporate all members of our community into our community. So yeah, I don't know if Rod wanted to say anything about that.
Anything, Rod?
Right. I think that challenging as COVID-19 has been, and there's also always I think that it has made the community, at least the team Code the Dream, stronger, and has brought us a little more united, because everyone is remote And you know, for those folks that were remote before, well, it's like, well, now everybody's in the same spot, you know, and it's brought us closer, and it's got the team working, getting used to working remote, and you know, learn to be efficient this way. And I think it's good for the future. You know, definitely, I think the virus is changing the way everything works from here on, and the possibilities of a lot of companies seeing, you know, remote work as a possibility for them and what benefits might be. And I also got caught my attention what Don was saying regarding like the VR sets, because I do own a Oculus Quest myself, and it's like the greatest thing. It makes you feel like, you know, you're somewhere else. And I think, you know, there's a lot of things to explore that can bring people closer, even though they're not, you know, physically present.
Yeah.
And,
That's
there's a
great.
lot of technology, definitely, but VR is a great thing to explore as well. During my capstone for my um, computer science bachelor's, I work with the nursing department trying to make a VR, develop a VR, you know, simulation for their nurses, for the students to practice the nursing skills. You know, and that's just for like on the health side. You know, how can you practice? Because I notice they always need a you know, they need tools, and I don't want to call it a dummy, but you know, they have their tools in the bed. And I remember calling it a dummy. One of the nursing teachers told me it's not a dummy, you know. I forgot what she called it, you know, better term, but I think there is so much to explore with technology, and how can you make it better. Like, you could just, you know, put a VR set and practice your skills in your house or something, you know, for health or for many other things. So it's interesting, but yeah, thank you.
That's great. I think that you're absolutely right. That the sky's the limit in the use cases around VR and AR, which is very exciting. A tip, I was speaking to a business founder recently, but actually not that recently, it was before COVID-19, but who had predominantly an on-site team, but had a number of remote workers. And they set a policy in their company that whenever a meeting was scheduled that included at least one person that was not on site, that every employee had to log on from their desk. So it didn't feel like some people were kind of in the club and then there's like this one outsider. And it really drove kind of a more inclusive culture across the organization. So we're learning a lot now. Some folks had already figured it out. Caroline, let's go over to you. We've got a few minutes remaining. I want to make sure we can capture a few audience questions. Do we have any questions coming in?
Thanks, Tom. Yes, we do. The first question, the underserved communities are doing great things with limited resources. For example, not having the latest technology, using Alibaba, etc., and finding ways to enable critical services. Is there an online collection of documentation that describes what other people can use to help them deploy needed services with limited resources?
You want to take a stab at that?
I don't know of any library like that, but if you look to some of these big organizations like Planet Water, like Engineers Without Borders, Mercy Corps, they have lists of programs that would certainly meet some of the things that person is asking about. Because they're looking at ways in those organizations to deliver the services in a sustainable way to these communities.
Thank you, Renee. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think, you know, we've heard even today about, you know, CrossComm has a business to run, Device Solutions has a business to run, Code and Dream has a business to run, but they at times find bandwidth to do interesting things. So there's no harm in reaching out and making connections to those who can do work, and you just never know. They may find creative ways to bring additional resources in or to support. So I would not underestimate connecting both in your local community and virtually wherever you are to even the folks that are on the panels today.
Thank you both. More specifically, does anyone know if there's an online collection of documents that describe what people have done to help them deploy needed services with limited resources?
I think that's probably kind of a similar answer, that I don't know if there's a central database or repository. I'll invite anybody, can add in the comments window if you have ideas that we could share out afterwards. But you really, by coming into ecosystems like this and talking and convening, you can connect to specific projects and specific resources.
Thanks, Tom. Where do you see the practical applications for VR and AR for nonprofits?
I punched in an answer on the chat, but this is not specific for nonprofits, but I think VR is going to have a transformative impact on training and simulation, and the not-for-profit world is no exception. I think that especially if you've got, for instance, field workers potentially distributed across a large geographic area, or maybe in remote or disparate locations, you could potentially do remote collaborative training and simulation of interacting with the populace around you, or going through compliance or procedures. There is no better learning than experiential learning, and VR as a medium excels at that. So I think that in the next few years, we're going to see virtual reality transform every facet of education and learning, not just for young people, but even for continuing education and professional education for adults in both the for-profit and nonprofit worlds as well.
That's great. Renee,
Don, is there a way to take your phone to then draw AR objects onto the environment to do a what-if scenario?
Yeah, absolutely. The cool thing is that we all have rudimentary VR and AR devices in our pockets. If you have a semi-modern smartphone, more than likely that phone is capable of some rudimentary virtual reality and augmented reality as well, especially on the Apple platform or on a high-end device for Android, where you can start to create spatial content and interact with spatial content, potentially create a hologram of an object on your desk and potentially do a walkthrough or a walk around for it. I think that there's a lot of venues and organizations and not-for-profit organizations like museums that might be able to leverage virtual reality and augmented reality to give people an experience of the content without necessarily having to be present. Obviously, to be present in an exhibit is the ideal, but we're also in very unideal times right now. And so I think that museums in particular, or any kind of location or destination-based not-for-profit missional organization, could potentially use AR and VR to engage with the public where, even under lockdown.
I think Don, just to echo on that, I think there are some museums that are doing that already. I was I was in the Netherlands at the end of last year, and the Rijksmuseum and the Van Gogh Museum were both starting to use aspects of that to add another layer of dimension to the exhibits. So,
yeah.
I actually, if I could also tag on here, this is Chavez. Most modern Samsung phones now, as an aspect of their software package called Bixby, have an AR creation software package that come, on the phone out of the box. So something to explore.
Mm-hmm. There's one museum out in Greensboro, the Greensboro History Museum, where we actually built an exhibit in VR called Gerrymander Madness. And this exhibit is basically an anti-democracy game where you are simulated inside of a politico's office, and you're planning out the fate of the districts of North Carolina by being able to gerrymander the map of North Carolina at will and dynamically see the simulated outcomes of the election as a result. Interesting enough, the irony is people can't experience the VR exhibit right now because they can't actually get to the museum under this lockdown. And so we're actually going to be releasing it on Steam and the Oculus Rift stores shortly, so that anyone with a VR headset can then download and experience it in their home.
Who'd have thought a virtual experience would be shut down by everyone having to stay at home?
Indeed, yes.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Caroline?
Yeah. So this person is curious what industries people have seen starting to invest in IoT in a post-COVID world, and where are people spending budgets for edge computing, instrumentation, sensor networks, or other connected device solutions?
Chris, do you want to try and take that?
Might be on mute.
Or any others? Maybe he's on mute.
So I will just, while he's coming off of mute, note that, obviously we've been following IoT and industrial IoT for a long time in Xylem. And there's really 4 areas that have been able to make a financial model. And I think that's where the big challenge is how do you create the business case for the technology? There's a lot of technology in search of a problem, but in smart agriculture, transportation, utilities, and manufacturing automation, they've been able to make business cases to make edge computing and sensorization and telemetry make sense financially. The big challenge, I think, is in innovation in business model to adopt the new technologies.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Renee.
Sure.
Anything you want to add, Chris, real quickly? We're just about at time.
Yeah, sorry, I was fighting with WebEx here, which crashed on me and couldn't get back in cleanly. Repeat the question really quickly, make sure I got it.
Just where in a post-COVID world are we seeing the highest investment in IoT?
Well, I think there's going to be obviously a lot maybe in healthcare to come, but also in industrial IoT, trying to automate processes in manufacturing, delivery of stuff and dispensing of stuff. We do all kinds of things like soap even, you wouldn't believe it.
Yep. Cool. Well, let me just ask a final question. We're going to make this a lightning question. I think we got 2 minutes left, so we'll get 5 answers in 2 minutes here. What are you most excited about right now? Don, let's start with you.
Gosh, I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over again, but I am truly, sincerely excited about the potential of reality and augmented reality to close the gap and to allow us to experience each other even across geographic distances.
Fantastic. Thanks. Rod, how about you?
I mean, I share what Don said, but I'm also very excited of, just being part of the work that I've been doing and being able to make an impact into the, community and being able to give back to others that are following in the same steps where I was at earlier. And other than that, just thank you for having me. It was a pleasure being here with all of you.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for being here, Renee.
I'm just excited by all the vibrant creativity that continues to bubble around the edges of IoT and IIoT, and thinking about the possibilities that has to offer. I love, just the energy around it is really great.
Thanks. I agree. Travis, what are you most excited about?
Well, I've got to say, I'm excited about verifiable, zero-cost industrial IoT devices. In other words, where everyone with actors that trust one another can be involved in something and have validation on when this light switch went on, when this light switch went off, and be able to validate that between untrusted partners in an industrial or environment.
Okay, great, thanks. Chris?
Well, I'm really pretty excited about the convergence of the RF world, low power RF radio communications that are enabling lots of new applications, and the low power electronics and energy harvesting that are making things like the system in Africa possible. But it's many of the wearables that we see through the ASSIST program, which you know so well, and things like that are just going to continue to roll out and be ubiquitous.
Yeah, amazing opportunities. Lori, let's wrap it up with you. did we lose Lori?
Can you hear me?
There she is. All right.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. I'm similar to Renee. I'm really excited about the energy that bubbles up. I think we're living in really challenging times. And my hope is that the growing frustration and discomfort that many people are feeling now will also drive some real creative solutions, in particular, people from underrepresented communities learning to use tech to help solve some of our social problems.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for being here. I know there's a roaring round of applause for all of you across all the muted microphones of the audience right now. We look forward to hosting everyone again in 2 weeks. We're going to have a similar session looking at kind of entrepreneurs and how you can do great things and still make money and still make impact, but hopefully drive positive societal change and solve really thorny problems at the same time. So I hope everyone will join us again next week to continue the discussion. You can find us at riot.org. I'd like to thank my team behind the scenes for everything that they do to make these programs possible. And thanks again to Travis, Don, Lori, Rod, Chris, and Renee for your time today. We'll look forward to seeing everyone again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.